Going. Sweet. So, hi everybody. Welcome to the week 7 weekly sync. I don't remember who the teams were off the top of my head. I can pull them up here in a second. Does anyone want to start by demoing and kind of talking where we got up to this week?
Sure, I can go ahead. Ours is relatively quick, honestly. I'll share my screen real quick. 1 second. Sorry, 1 sec. All right. So as you can see, we have our kind of stylized new welcome page here. Danny and I just thought that we could use a little bit of Bootstrap to make it a little easier for, changing like the styles for like our inputs and buttons. As you can see here, we have a new button for create list. If you want to create a new account, we have this pretty wide input bar for submitting an existing token. So I can go ahead and do that. There's Bootstrap kind of gives you that like, I forgot what it's called, but if you're clicking on it, it gives you kind of like the highlight of the box, which is nice. So we'll go ahead and submit that. And this is actually the main, branch here. So we can see that we can see Tatiana's and Yolanda's push here. But for ours, we implemented a logout button. So you can log out from, the style's a little off right now, but you can log out from both the list and the add item component. As you can see, I can log back on here, submit, and if I'm in the add item component, I can also log out. And we also did a little bit of accessibility stuff within the add item. So if you, let me just pull up my console here. If you look here, you can see that the input is for please enter item, and the radio buttons all have a soon or kind of soon name on there, and then the click a date has a last purchase name for accessibility, and that's about it. Yeah.
So you can definitely tell that it looks a lot nicer. It's starting to definitely feel like pieces of it are coming together and look fluid. I think it looks great. Any challenges, any questions? What was that? So if you're reading this right, that was you and Danny who were working on this one. Danny, anything else to add on that bit?
We did in implementing the logout feature. It actually ended up being a bit more challenging than we anticipated because we have logout based upon a state that lives in a different component. So we noticed we had to end up passing that through so that we could essentially, utilize the behavior that exists elsewhere. But looking through the demo, I did just realize that we have to log out twice now if you're on the list view. So maybe something we just need to bear in mind, that we need to figure out a way to like adjust the state in both components. Because I think that's causing some oddities and getting back to that main screen. But beyond that, Sam did a lot of research on this because we kind of, the first night, we're like, I actually don't know how we're gonna do this that doesn't look dirty or like doesn't look bad, and trying to keep that single source of truth. So props to Sam for pushing through some of that stuff as we were getting a little, it felt like in over our heads.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did it the cleanest way, to be honest. But I think because we have the navbar component in multiple components, like the add item component and in the container, ghostly container, we had to pass like the logged in, the set logged in function as a prop to each of those components. So it kind of, there is a single source of truth, but it's kind of branching out into multiple components, which is, you know, probably not ideal, but you know, that was the way that we went about doing it.
Gosh, I was just thinking, so you're not the first people to have come across this as a problem. State management in the front end frameworks in general, and in particularly in React, has this pretty interesting and pretty intense history of just people wrestling with this problem, right? And the right way to go about solving it. So it looks like you guys did fine. Like, yeah, you might want to hook something together for the two components, the multiples of things, but there are billions, maybe trillions of words written on state management out there. And like, yeah, it'd be an interesting tech talk to go and do, because it's such a thing, and it keeps changing. Like the whole history of how state hooks came to be came from Redux and all kinds of other stuff. Like it's pretty wild, but don't feel bad about working through the problem. It's a very common one. Cool. Let's see. How about Tatiana, Yolanda? What do you guys got? How to go this week?
I can do that unless Yolanda, you want to do the walkthrough.
Either or, I'm flexible. So however you want to feel. Do you want me to do it, or I could do it? I'll do it. I'll just jump in, dive in, and explain it. All right. Let me share my screen real quick. Hold on. Give me.
Strong tap game right now.
Strong naming game too.
I think you're still on mute, by the way. Yolanda, you're
You're
on mute.
definitely
So
on mute, Yolanda.
there we go. All right.
Hello. So I'm just gonna go over our the criteria that Tatiana and I worked on. So we add a app header to display the name of our project, which is Woot Woot. So this is our home page right now. So we have that, and once I'm logged in, it should stay in the other page as well. And once the user is logged in, the token should be displayed, and which I will demonstrate. So I will just create a new list. And as you can see, Woot Woot is still there, Woot Woot. And right here is our token, Onyx drip added. And to confirm that and double check it, I will go into my local storage. And if you can see, it's right there, Onyx drip and added. And then the other thing that we did was list item collapse and expand. So if I add an item like a Whopper, want it soon, and I'll submit it. Let's take this out. If I go to the list, it's right there. And then if you click on that item, it expands to show the last purchase date and the next estimated purchase date. And then you could, of course, collapse it. And for now, you have to click on the actual word itself. I think Tatiana mentioned that in order to click on this, like the div area, we have to mess around a little bit with the CSS in order for that whole thing to collapse or expand. But Tatiana could like explain a little bit better. I think that's from my understanding for the time being. So right now it works by clicking on the name. And we're hoping that we could figure out a way through that CSS, because at that time we weren't sure which route to take for the styling. Then we could mess around with the properties to be able to click on somewhere on this div area to expand and collapse. And I believe that is what we tackled on our stuff. So yep.
Sweet, I like it. Yeah, Tatiana, did you want to say more about the the click area thing or just any stuff in general?
I think that we'll just have to add some padding, which again, because I wasn't sure if we were going to go with bootstrap or like style components and didn't want to start putting in CSS, randomly. I think if we add padding or margins, we'll be able to control the area that is clickable. And that should help a lot. And also Danny made a good point when she was going through this, is that there should be some sort of an indicator to say like, you can click here. So we can add that as well.
Cool.
I will admit when reviewing, I had trouble finding where to click.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We probably should have specified that you can only click on the word for the time being.
It works. It's good.
Works, exactly. That looks good. And like, I really like the whole, like the opening up and showing that detail and that kind of thing, like helps make the list like clean and concise, but still like has all the data when you want it. I love that kind of stuff. So, good things. Cool. Any last bit on the demos or the last week before we flip it over to Graham? All right. Then I think Graham is going to talk to us about stuff.
I am now unmuted. All right, so let's share my screen. And I'm going to do the naughty thing of sharing my whole desktop just so I can show you my desktop background before I get started. This is our cat.
That is adorable.
We took Christmas photos last year. It was amazing.
So good.
My partner knitted that hat for it. I get so happy every time I see it. Anyways, let's get on topic. So we have a bunch of slides to go through here that have been very kindly provided by the TCL team talking about communication. But before we even start doing that, I just kind of wanted to get a feel from you guys. What are your initial thoughts around what does communication look like? What does it feel like? How have you been enjoying communication here? What works, what doesn't work so far in your thoughts? All right, well, with that, let's jump in. Okay.
Say I got one thing.
All right, go for it.
Only because so this week in Chicago we had a lot of storms, and so when we were all supposed to meet up and have our design meeting, I didn't have internet, and so I was trying to follow along from my phone, and I was I wasn't able to join the call, but I was able to see our Word doc that we were putting together, our Google Doc. And I just realized like how important it is for us to have an ongoing dialogue beyond just that, because it was really, really hard for me to follow along with what was going on beyond people just typing in a document. And so thank you for everyone bearing with me through that, but it just kind of reminded me like how important it is for us to have a discussion about what's happening instead of just words on a page that no one is really like talking through.
Absolutely. So that kind of lends greatly into the next question that I kind of wanted to ask was, what do you think is going to be in here? What do you think so far communication is going to look like? What is going to be on this slideshow that's been kindly provided to us? We've already got some sort of document where we can kind of talk offline from Danny here. Any other thoughts of what's going to go in here?
I think just like being open and transparent about everything, just making sure that we're all in the know and that there's no, if we're a part of a team, that we should kind of at least get a gist of what each team member is working on, and how we're going to go about it would be pretty important to me.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to add to those two comments, because those are both absolute ones, is also communications between, in this case, it's kind of like the mentors and the collabbies. But in more reality, it's more like the reviewers and the code writers and also higher level stakeholders. So let's say, for instance, instead of just making this for ourselves, how would we communicate to the people that own the product, that are paying our salaries, that they need to just see, are we on track? What are we doing? But anyways, with that tiny little preamble, let's jump in. So communication for devs by the Collab Lab. Communication is key, as you can see here. It is triple equals, not double, but triple equals. All very exciting. It is actually entirely true. Communication really is the bedrock of what we do. If we're not able to talk, as I'm sure you guys know, we're not going to be able to succeed. So it really is kind of the most important part of what we do. I would argue that a really good developer is someone who writes almost more than they code. So for each of these different topics, we're going to go through a little bit of the what, the why, and the how. So first off, what is documentation? And let me just first ask, have you guys used any documentation in the processes that you've been working on so far? Yeah, and I see you nodding, Danny, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. What type of documentation have you seen? What was it for? How did you use it? How did you find it?
I mean, I constantly use documentation, but I think the most substantial one as we were getting the project going was all the Firebase documentation from Google. Just in understanding how we communicate with our database and how we, create the desired outcome. That one was huge.
Absolutely. And kind of building on that as well, what Lyle was talking about the other week with the accessibility. There's lots of really good documentation out there about how to do accessibility well and kind of some of the pitfalls to avoid. So that could both be more technical documentation of like how to use a tool that's going to be running on your software to check, or that could be, here's a higher level perspective of it. So documentation generally, is just something that kind of describes what it is that you're trying to do and how. So why is it important? These are good questions. There's a horrible feeling when you write a piece of code and then you come back to it in 2 years' time and you look at it, you stare at it, and you think, what the hell did I do here? And it is all too common because it's like, what did I do? I don't remember exactly why these choices were made. Another good one, of course, is that writing things down help you learn. People who can teach or often have a greater understanding of the core concepts behind it. Generally also kind of revisiting big decisions. So for instance, I noticed that we made the choice to go for Bootstrap, which is great. It's a fine choice. But there's also lots of other CSS tooling out there. So why use Bootstrap? Why use them? This would be a perfect topic for documentations. Also onboarding new people. So if we had to add another person onto our team right now, instead of going from 5, maybe go from 4 to 5 or on to 6 people, that'd be really cool. But we'd have to also find a way to get them up to speed without everyone just saying, hang on, let's teach you from ground zero. Instead, we can say, hey, here's a repository of information, a repository of knowledge. Go learn, ask for questions, ask for help, but here's where you can start. They've highlighted institutional knowledge here. And I'm going to take a wild guess and call this the bus factor. Has anyone heard of the bus factor? Oh, okay, so I see some head nods, some shakes, but the way I understand it, at least, is that the bus factor is, could this person in your company get hit by a bus? Morbid, I'm sorry, but and could the company still succeed? Could it go on? So that level of knowledge that is institutionalized and stolen and hoarded in that person means that they are the only one with that knowledge of how this functions, how this thing functions. So if there's one guy that knows how your database works and they disappear, or more accurately, they quit, or they go on vacation and something needs to change, if you don't have good documentation of how that works, then you're not going to be able to succeed very well. So it really helps avoid that institutional knowledge where it's all just kind of in people. And instead allows it to be shared and allows people to know. And more importantly there, it empowers other team members. So again, helps saying, hey, I want you to know how to work this database as well, because it'll free up my time. It'll empower you to do this better. And also, it just generally makes us all better teammates. Yeah, so they've got a couple quick tips here, write for the person who knows the least and optimize for a person who needs a quick reference. And those are both very good points. How to write documentation. And yeah, absolutely very true. You'll find lots of really good documentation sources on the internet. And the one they call out here is the React router. How does this work? And they've got some really nice interactive tooling and all these things of how this stuff works. One that I personally really like is also a tool called Swagger. And this is something you find for API documentation. So to give you actually a good example, is the YNAB API endpoints. This is the app called You Need a Budget. And so they then have this Swagger documentation that says, hey, here are how all of our API endpoints behave. If you send us something here, we'll send you this back. So again, showing exactly what the parameters are to send, how it all works. Love it. So you can get lots of different types of documentation, but generally at the end of the day, it's all showing you exactly what needs to happen in order for you to work with that tooling. All right. Pull requests. How did you guys like making pull requests? What were your thoughts?
I really like using the template that's in there. Very helpful and keeps me in check of like how to write a pull request. Because sometimes, well, initially I didn't know how to write it. Just like I thought I'd write a simple message, but the template was really nice with, you know, is it refactor? Is it a new code? Or, you know, what to do like, oh gosh, my mind is blank right now, but for others to do a like the quality, assurance on that. So me personally, I really like the template.
Yeah, I was able to, even within the first couple of weeks at my job, we're working on some like internal tooling. And so we had a couple PRs and I was able to kind of influence the team to use some of our processes, which was really great to be like, hey, we should include testing steps on here because we're dealing with something that they're going to have to create a user in a specific way. We need to make sure all this stuff is documented for them. And it was just a really nice thing to like up our team's understanding, but also give me kind of that like edge of like, yeah, I know what we're doing. We can figure this out as a team. Let's go.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. And that's fantastic. You're able to kind of help other people improve. Because again, kind of going back to that whole like documentation bit, you know, helping level other people up. That's exactly what you're doing here is you're leveling up your team. That's really awesome to hear. Other question for you on the topic of pull requests. As the reviewer, you're coming into something you probably heard a little bit about on the Sunday the week before, but it's probably been a week since you've seen this. So how did you find the pull request template coming in fresh to these types of topics? How did you find those experiences?
Super helpful, I think, because in one, you know, this was like a nice screenshot of what the ask criteria was and what the team did, and also the summary of the testing steps, like pull down this branch. Absolutely. This is how you do it. Check out this branch. This is how you do it. And like, you know, take the following steps and make sure that the following actions take place. It's really great.
Did you guys find
I agree.
Go for it. Sorry, Sam.
Oh, no, I was just saying I agree. I mean, just to be able to like be pointed to where we're supposed to be looking at and then like know exactly what the team worked on and be able to correlate that to the actual code that they actually worked on. And, you know, just kind of being in the loop that way is super helpful when, especially going into the next week, you know, we'll know exactly what each team member worked on or each team worked on and be able to kind of jump in and build upon that.
That's awesome. Now, I guess the hard question is, and you might not have enough context to be able to answer this properly, but do you think there is enough in our pull requests? Could you come back a year later and say, I need to do an analysis on why the bootstrap is now broken? You know, was there enough in the pull request to be able to say, here is all the context that I need, and here's how I can look at it with fresh eyes?
Maybe reasons for decision making would be helpful, like an item that would be helpful, but I see your point is there maybe this should be in the documentation outside of the pull request, like maybe that's not the point of the pull request.
Yes and no. I would argue that pull requests are a form of documentation. So yes and no, but perhaps if there are significant decisions that were made, then yes, absolutely, that would be another form of documentation that's going to be needed. Yeah.
Yeah, looking at this slide of the what, why, and how, I feel like as long as we're covering that in the PR, then we're kind of tackling that, right? Like you can look back and be like, oh, I know exactly what happened. I know why it happened, and I know how it happened, and I can assess this later. I don't know if all of our PRs currently follow that as well as they could. I'd have to look at them, but I feel like most of them are pretty solid.
Yeah, I would agree, actually. And I would also make the important distinction that it's not just the pull request in isolation, it's the pull request and the issue as well. So the two combined together create the entire context of, what was the work that was going to be done and what was actually done. And those two together create a lot of context that's really important. All right, so why do we make pull requests and put detail in them? It gives reviewers context on your code. It is a big part of oh, I didn't even read that right. A big part of interviewing is talking through your code. So again, having that robust PR description allows you to say, hey, here are the Cliff Notes version of what we're actually doing. So it's really nice because A, it helps your reviewer read these things really quickly, and B, it allows you to kind of get up to speed. So yeah, not even just having it for an interview, but also just as a general work practice, being able to review and talk through, it's really, really important. How? We didn't really see screenshots, GIFs, and videos in our things right now, but for a lot more complicated features, especially when you are doing some minutia, it's very important to have those types of extra steps that are showing, hey, this is exactly what's happening, this is exactly what's changing, this is why it's expected, and this is why it's important. I would actually make the argument that what we're doing isn't complex enough to really need a lot of the more complicated things like GIFs and screenshot and videos, but screenshots are always nice. For instance, I keep calling back to your Bootstrap bit, but having that beautiful new page and saying, hey, this is what's changed. That would be very nice to have in an MR. Same with the color coding that you had a little while back, more visual elements, those screenshot really nicely. Yeah, and again, links, resources, permalinks, code to references, all really useful. Again, adding to that level of context. And you guys did a fantastic job at this as well, of self-reviewing and also getting each other to review it before even sending it to one of the mentors. Awesome job. You guys really had that in the bag. They call out in particular this, which is one of their MRs that they did once upon a time. And yeah, as you guys were calling out, this template is pretty solid. Saying, hey, these are the exact acceptance criteria. This is what the issue that it relates to. And then, you can go take a look and say, oh, this is exactly the details. Description, what it's doing, kind of why, testing steps, QA criteria, and things that are left over. So if, for instance, there's more work to be done, there might be links to another issue, whatever it is, kind of going in here. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts so far before I continue? All right, cool. Let's talk comments. Did you guys add any comments in your code?
I do. I know we had a discussion about this a while back. I think Danny brought it up how her team doesn't like to do comments, but I always not always, but love to write comments in the code just to give my sense of direction consistent. And then if anybody's reading it, kind of know exactly why I use a certain method or what this function does in a brief little summary.
Cool. So to put you on the spot a little bit, I'm sorry, Zach, but what type of things do you comment? When do you decide you need to add a comment and when do you decide you don't?
I usually will write comments on functions that I build, especially if they're functions that are used in other functions, to kind of explain this function is built to solve this issue and is using this method or using this function. Or I'll also specifically for one of the issues that we had one week, I remembered using async and await for promises, and I didn't know if everyone was familiar, and it was also something new to me. So I kind of wrote in the comments oh, I used async and await here for this promise, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone was included in that process, just in case they didn't know what it was.
So going back to kind of the what, why, how, what one of those were you looking for when you're commenting? Are you commenting saying this is what the function is doing, this is why I chose to do this, or this is kind of the details of how it works?
So for that specific issue, I did it for like, I guess kind of I was like the what and the why, you know, like this is a promise. I'm using the async method, and I explained like why I was using it a little bit in the comments as well.
Sounds great. Can I steal someone from the other side of, hey, I don't like making comments? Can I hear a description as to what their thoughts were on that? I heard this.
I'm not an anti-commenter, but I did bring this up in one of our early meetings asking about, or office hours, I think, asking about like how everyone felt about the argument of you should comment your code so it's easy to understand versus your code should be clean enough and readable enough to understand without comments. And so like where I work, historically, they have just like avoided comments, and the argument is, oh, we should be able to understand what your code's doing without them. So I understand both, and I find myself in the middle where I want both. I want to understand what's happening without the comments. I think it should be readable enough, but I think that like comments in some of those sticky functions or things that may not quite make sense on first read definitely don't hurt the situation. So I don't know. I ride the fence on it.
No, I think you both are actually exactly right, because you don't want to comment every single line saying this is a conditional if that is checking, if X is greater than 5 because I don't know, whatever, right? You don't want to have something on every single line saying this is what's happening here. That'd be way overkill. But on the other hand, if it's incredibly dense code that's a little hard to parse in your mind when you first see it, then yeah, a comment's certainly going to be helpful there to try to explain a little bit of the why and the what's going on behind it. Kind of the rule of thumb that I always go for is, does this make it cleaner? Does this make it clearer? And always, in those cases, what really you're looking at, right, is as someone who's coming in fresh to this, is the code completely self-documenting? Is it completely saying, hey, this is exactly what's going on, it's really clear, all my variables are named, the methodology is standard amongst our code base, all those things. If one of your coworkers come in and read it immediately, you're awesome, don't need comments. But if it's something's unclear, something's new, like what Sam was saying with the async await, perfect. Have that idea of saying, hey, this is a really good thing to do. And this is a little bit more clear. So let's talk a little bit here. So context, right? Kind of coming back to that context again of saying, this is what you're doing. Is this clear enough already to do? If not, let's try to see what this is happening. So if I'm trying to debug something and I'm digging in, do I need a little bit of help figuring out what's going on? And decisions. That's again one of the big things. So we can have long pages of documentation elsewhere that'll say, hey, when we decided to introduce CS into our application, we made these trade-offs and these decisions. And that's great. But sometimes it's not always immediately evident when you're reading the code. And in those cases, occasionally a code comment can really help. Other thing that I love is adding links in my code comments. So if, for instance, that you're making a particular choice and you have to make it that way for this time, like for instance, it's a very complicated, archaic function and you don't have the time or the resources to actually refactor to make it self-documenting, well, let's add a comment saying to do, we need to refactor this, and then an issue number. And then you can link to that issue, and then you say, oh, okay, here in my long detailed issue is all the long description of the trade-offs and the reason why we can't do this right now. Or you could link that to that long documentation page of saying, hey, here's what's going on with the CSS. Here's why we made this trade-off. Again, this kind of saying code comments should be fairly short, concise, but they also can link out to more information to help, again, show that self-documented code and with the decisions behind it. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of the key, right, is don't say this is what it's doing. We all hopefully have enough foundational understanding of how the code works, that we can figure it out. If not, we need to ask questions and we need to help each other. But that's not the purpose of the comments. The purpose of the comments is talking about why, not about what or how. They have an example here that they like. I believe it's this guy. Yeah, so block comments are often useful. I'm kind of showing a little bit more of detail exactly in this function, which is in, what is it? It's in Reach UI. This is great. When I look at it, accordion, I personally don't really use this. I don't really know, but immediately I can see that this is the wrapper for all other accordion components. Great. I understand a little bit more context. And again, some of the choices and the trade-offs that they're making through, this has been pretty well documented. Whereas before, okay, they got a default index. Why are they doing this? I don't understand. Again, those kind of choices and decisions have been shown a little bit more. And I think that's it. They want us now to brainstorm and ask what experiences and PR descriptions and code comments have been like, but I've been trying to do that throughout because I feel like that at the end is a little sad. So anything else you guys want to talk about? Any thoughts about communication, writing, either long form, short form? Anything we can do better? Wow, what's your experience like?
I have a soapbox to stand on here, and I think that just because it's something I watched, happen during the pandemic, in that it became a lot easier for the people who were already kind of quiet and kind of prone to fading into the background to continue to fall into the background to the point where if you were going to get ignored or if you were going to get looked over, it just became that much easier for people in that situation, as everybody kind of went to being on remote and behind cameras and all that stuff. And especially as if you're young in the field, if you're still learning and doing junior things, like it's easy to get kind of from people to look past you. And so I think you always want to strive to be over communicating and to be visible whenever possible. And that's going to apply from pull requests to how you talk in Slack or emails or whatever, right? You want people to see you. It's okay that you don't know stuff, or it's okay that you're asking questions or or whatever, but like you want to be as visible as possible. And over communicating is always the right answer instead and over under communicating. There's an art to like finding what just right is, but if you are ever unsure, over communicate. And just assume that if a lot of people think, oh, eventually someone will see all the good work I'm doing and appreciate me, and I'd love for that to be true in the world too, but it's usually not. You usually need to tell people when you're doing good work or that you're trying, for people to kind of notice. And when you have questions or when you have problems or when you're doing whatever, just be as visible and out there and putting yourself out there as you can. If you're worried that you'll look silly or that people aren't going to see it or something, don't worry about it. Just keep doing it and keep trying to communicate as best as you can. And then also, I do the newspaper thing, try and tell people the headlines, assuming that most of the communications that you read, people are going to read 2 sentences in and then kind of give up on you. So, at least give them the headlines, give them the quick picture, and then put the details down at the bottom so that, you get the details across. Otherwise, if you're hiding all the important information at the bottom, people aren't going to read it, people aren't going to see it. So be visible and put the headlines up front, and I think that's important, but it's something really to think about and to fight against, quite honestly. And in remote land, it's so hard to just be lost in the noise.
Thanks, all. That's really good advice. Yeah, over communication is 100% the key. I completely agree. I'll join you on that soapbox.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the over communication aspect. Like, I tend to in my mind be like, oh man, am I saying too much? Like, do they not even need to know this? But at the end of the day, it's like, if it's documented and it's saved there, then, it might not hurt at the end of the day. And it'll most likely help. Just having something in a PR or having something in Slack, just letting everyone know what your process is, and just so that you can stay consistent and on path, and no one's like out of the loop when it comes down to like presenting or, you know, hopping back onto the code or whatever. So I'm 100% agree with that.
One note of caution from someone who talks way too much, as me, is that over communication is not talking all the time. You know, communication is all about effective communication, right? So it's not just a matter of being constant person go yak, yak, yak in all the meetings. Instead, it's more of a matter of, okay, how can I express something important? What's the most effective way to communicate that across? Can I write it up in a longer form and then give a little snippet with a link so that people who are interested can read more? You know, how can you communicate effectively to your peers and to your people above you? Okay, we're at 50 minutes. So unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about with communication and documentation and all that.
I had one more thing I was thinking about with
Please.
PRs as a reviewer. I think I particularly like the testing steps because it lets me know what I need to try and break. So that we can actually make sure that we're not running into bugs that someone else catches by accident later on. But it kind of lets me know where I need to focus on potentially breaking the app.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing I like actually from our internal templates compared to these ones is that with a very large, complicated software product with lots of different teams working on the same thing, you also have to say, here's who I think this could hurt if something goes wrong. You know, in worst case, what's going to go wrong? How is this going to affect people? You know, in those scenarios, what's our rollback? What do we need to do to counteract this? Yeah.
The same content that would make a good bug also makes, or for writing up a good bug rather, also makes for writing up a good pull request. So a lot of that, you need more stuff in a pull request for it to be complete, but things like, here's images showing you how to reproduce, here's the testing steps, you know, like here's what I think is you know, the deal and going on, like all that stuff is good.
100%. Issue writing is so important in addition to that. All right, well, I then will close this, show you my cat again, and stop screen sharing.
So, you know, this is normally the part of the meeting where we would talk about the issues. And looking at our officially assigned teams, we have Yolanda and Danny, and we have Sam and Tatiana for the week. However, you know, we've still got the same thing open that we had last week. And let's talk about, hey, what you guys want to do and what are the things that we think we need to do to accomplish that this week. Does doing that, keeping the pairs and everything make sense for how we need to finish up? You know, what needs to happen to get this place to a relative good place of stopping? You know, I don't think a good code base is ever really done, right? But like, where would you feel good about, like, you know, putting a bow on this thing and saying you did 8 weeks of good work? You know what I mean? So first of all, yeah, let's throw it out there. Does anyone have any thoughts about what needs to happen next this week?
Yeah, I think, you know, we wrote some stuff down in the group document, the group Google Doc last week, but I think the main thing we have to really focus on is just kind of having the styling down right now, you know, having consistent styling and like have it presentable, because it's really nice where it is now. But obviously, you know, like our grocery cards, like they can definitely be styled in a way that doesn't look so like plain in a sense, you know, and we're already getting there with, like, you know, using Bootstrap and whatnot, and the collapsible feature is super dope. But I think just like fleshing it out, because ultimately I think, you know, when it comes to features, I think we have basically what we need. Now we can kind of focus on the styling and then the accessibility at the end of the day. So yeah.
I agree with Sam, and I almost wonder Like I was wondering if it's worth it for all 4 of us to work together. But I also understand that like people are working, and because of time zones, it may be difficult to find time for all of us like to be on together. But yeah, it would just be like super helpful to just go through the styles and agree on things.
Yeah,
Guys,
I
do-
agree. Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Um,
Yolanda.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna agree with like Tatiana as well, because this is the last week and there's a little part of me, if we can, the 4 of us work together and just go out with a bang. And I totally understand with the time zone. So if we can make it work, I think it would be pretty rad to kind of do the last week with a woot woot bang and make it an awesome app. But I mean, that's if it works out, no stress. Just I'm agreeing with Tatiana and Sam.
I'm 100% down for that if everyone can, but you know, we can also split up after doing that. You know, I'm done with whatever.
Yeah, I feel like it would be good because it is a lot of design decisions at this point. And I think my biggest fear about if we just split off into pairs is that it's going to feel like 2 different groups made the app, right? When you switch from one page to another, it's going to have a completely different feel, even if you use the same color schemes and the same idea around styling. I am worried about that continuity from page to page. And I think the 4 of us coming together, we could really kind of tack out like what we want it to look like. And if we need to split off to do individual pieces after that, we know kind of how it needs to feel as a group.
Well, I think you have consensus there, so that's good. How would we like to organize that then going into the week? Do you guys just want to hop in on Slack and start chatting through like a meeting time? Do you guys want to throw up doodles on that? Do you want to dovetail that into, I think April said she would pick up office hours this week as well, so there's always the opportunity to do that as another potential point, you know, in addition to things, and we can throw on some extra of those if you want some additional mentor help in that. But by all means, again, like the Zoom is open, so feel like you can, if you guys just want to keep using it this week and hop in whenever it's convenient for you, that works as well. So yeah, I guess how would you want to organize that?
The easiest thing would just be to kind of throw out times. You know, I'm down to like start on Monday because, you know, this is kind of our last week for the project. So start early, you know, get a couple hours going early in the week. And, you know, I'm free Monday. So if anybody else wants to, I'm down.
Yeah, Monday evening, for me, like evening Eastern. But Yolanda, I know you also have boot camp in the afternoon, so let us know, because evening Eastern would be like your afternoon. Let us know what works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm done for Monday. Boot camp for me is usually Tuesdays, Thursdays, from 3:30 to 6:30 Pacific time. So Monday, I mean, I'm looking at my like calendar real quick. I know we could talk this in Slack, but I think anytime after like 1 o'clock my time, I should be good. So that's 4 o'clock your guys' time. So, but yeah, I don't know if we want to do doodle. That whatever works. I'm down.
I think you all know I work 9 to 5 Central, Monday through Thursday this week. So I'll around anytime after that.
May I suggest say like 7 Eastern Monday? So that's 6 for you, Danny, and 4 in the afternoon for you, Yolanda.
Let me double check with my husband. I
Yeah.
do still have to pick up my son at daycare, so I'll see what. Let me get back to you on
I can
that.
also
Yeah.
delay it. Yeah. If that's not acceptable, I can delay it as well.
One thing I just wanted to chat for 2 seconds. We are still looking at next Sunday, correct? Not next Saturday. Is that still the plan? All right.
All right, well, at least you have a tentative time. I suspect you may or may not, you know, fiddle with the exact time on that for the moment. It sounds like y'all are gonna try and meet tomorrow, coordinate in Slack and a little bit more of that to get the exact pin down on it. Like I said, the same Zoom link been using the whole time. Go ahead, keep using it. I'll try and hop on if you need help with anything as well. We'll send Slack to coordinate the office hours. I don't think we need, it sounds like you got your own, the Google Doc and everything, so I don't think we need to do any additional GitHubiness around that. So we're at time.
Lyle, can I ask, sorry, can I just clarify? Did you just say we can use the Zoom link?
Yes, yeah.
And
So-
you're not limited by the 40-minute, whatever.
No, that's
thank you.
that's exactly why. So
That's
use
helpful.
this link to get into this room at any point, and you should be good to just hop in and chat and do what you need to do. You should be able to share, and it shouldn't be blocked or anything. So feel
Thank
free to
you.
go ahead and do that.
So funny we're learning this on the last week.
Oops.
But we've
No,
been,
it's
we've
not
been
your
okay
fault.
so far.
I think you guys
so.
mentioned it. I think you guys mentioned it before. We just never like linked the dots.
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it. Feel free. Okay. So anything else we need to sort out in this meeting right now? To Graham's point, we're gonna plan on same bat time, same bat channel for next Sunday as kind of the final wrap it up meeting. Until then, you're gonna do stuff tomorrow. Anything else?
Yes, a quick
And-
off topic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Graham.
I was just going to say, what we should do for next weekend is perhaps do a full demo, and perhaps you guys should practice that demo, make sure everyone has a speaking role, and record it so that you can have that into posterity and also use that as a way to present and practice presenting your work. I'm not sure what the other content of the meeting is, but just a wild thought.
That's a great call. Thank you. Yeah.
Am I messing with the structure here, Lyle?
No, I was just thinking, so we will be recording next week's meeting. So you will have a recording of whatever you do end up demoing. But practice, I think, is always a great thing. I've done a few hackathons where like you do the hackathon for like the whole week and then you get in there and then your whole demo blows up because you didn't spend any time like doing it. And like that's always a bad, embarrassing thing. So like I'm all for it. With the only thing of that, like you want to make sure that you're, I would say worry about doing the work you want to do before worry about the demo part. That's the only thing that I was maybe getting hesitant with. And then we'll try it. I know Andrew at least wanted to try and be a part of every final meeting, so I know that he's going to be there. So be like, if you're aiming for an audience, I would say like think about Andrew's going to be here to like see what you did, right? So that's kind of what we're hoping for in terms of next week demoableness.
Lana, you have something off topic you wanted to add?
Yeah, just if you guys do another cat Christmas card, can I get one in the mail too? That is all before I forget, because I would love to put that in my Christmas tree this year.
We had a full photo shoot. There was about 3 or 4 different cards that we sent out, all with different photos and all this stuff, all from the same photo shoot. It was fantastic. I can make a digital one and stick it in our chat, and you can print that off. If you want, I can change it so it doesn't even say the year on it. And it's Christmas card for posterity.
I mean, you could say like TCL 27. You could say woo woo. I just want the cat and our your name. It was just too adorable, and I think that would make my year too. And then if you do that too with your pet, or any of you guys have pets and you do Christmas cards, I would love to put that on my tree. Just FYI.
You might have to remind me, but we can make that happen.
I'm always taking pictures of my dogs. I've got billions of them. I'm sure I'll do more around Christmas time too.
Shameless plug, there was actually an online service we used. It was really easy. It was all make your cards in this online editor, and then you just upload your photos and then print them off, and then you just say, hey, I want 100 of these and I want 50 of these or whatever. We didn't actually do that many, but super easy, pretty cheap. It was maybe $40 all in.
What was it called?
I don't remember, but I will find it and I'll put it in our chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say Britt and I did something similar. We did a holiday card exchange for the rescue I volunteer at. And so it was just everyone and their dogs. But I don't remember the name of what we used either, but it was great.
All right, we have the order for cards in. We've got a plan. We've got, a target for next week. Y'all are doing awesome. I have high expectations that you will continue to deliver on awesomeness going into this next week. So keep it up. But honestly, like, you already done an amazing job. Like, congrats. And as y'all, transition into doing this, as your thing in a career and find your way through, a large confusing field, I'm pretty sure all of you are gonna just kick ass. So good work, have fun. I'm gonna call it for the meeting and we'll talk to you in a bit. So, yeah.
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.